because we're going to welcome to the stage some amazing chefs all the way from Turner and George Butchery, based in Islington, Waterloo
And Camberwell.
And we are going to cut down some beautiful British beef, get it on the barbecue, and in about, 30, 35 minutes, you guys might be able to have a taste of it as well. So can we get a big round of applause for James and Jacob from Turner and George. Brilliant, boys. So, talk to us. What have we got here today?
So we've got a free-range roasting. On the roasting, you get the rump, the whole fillet or the T-bone, ribeye and sirloin. So we're going to do a few different cuts.
And for those of us that don't know, the roasting on a cow, if I'm looking at this cow, where are we?
Around here.
Oh, nice. It looks, nice. Nice and tender, yeah, I can tell. Absolutely, perfect. So from this huge cut of beef, what steaks are we going to pull off this so that everyone would know?
So you're going to get the ribeye from this end. James is going to do some sirloin there for the barbecue. Then you get the T-bone or the porterhouse, and then the Chateaubriand and the rump.
Amazing. And I mean, this looks like it's had a decent amount of age on it as well. This has been hung for
about 35 days.
Amazing. Is that all done in your butchery? Is that right?
We have that all done in our fridge, basically, in the Turner and George shop in Angel.
Okay.
Turn it on. Hello, testing.
Twist it.
Twisting. See?
Okay.
Hang on.
There you go.
Hello. There we go. That's better.
Great.
Hello. Lovely. Yeah, this is all hung in our Angel shop.
Okay.
We've hung this 35 days down there in our dry aging fridge. It's a hefty piece of meat.
Who everyone knows about dry aging here, or should we give you a little intro? Can we tell us about dry aging? So what happens when you dry aging a big piece of beef like this?
So basically what you want to do, you're going to hang the meat in the fridge.
Yep.
If you're going to have it the next day, it's going to taste awful. So you want to put that in there for a long time.
Okay.
But if you do it there, it's going to go rotten. So you want to take all the moisture out of the room and get that beef dry. It preserves it that way, whilst also giving it the flavour.
It's intensifying it, right? Basically,
much.
getting all of those delicious, like the whiskey we were just talking about, getting all those delicious flavours up in there.
Yes.
Amazing, perfect. And today, what we're going to be cutting out? So you said a ribeye, a sirloin, getting some stuff on the grill.
Absolutely, yeah. We're going to be putting some sirloin on the grill today, and we're going to be cutting up some ribeye and rump in front of you. Give you a little demonstration as well.
Perfect.
Absolutely, we've got lots to do with this lovely grassroots roasting. So I'm going to
Amazing.
crack on with the butchery whilst Jacob does the yapping.
Yeah,
better get ready with that.
Well, shall we start with a little bit of information about where this beef's from? I understand that you guys have like a kind of cool initiative around kind of regenerative farming, and what's it called?
So the company's called Grassroots, and they tend to work with a few different farmers across the country. A lot of them are in Shropshire and Yorkshire, but yeah, it tends to be an ex-dairy cross. So it's another way of getting a use out of an animal that doesn't normally have a use at the end.
And Matt, you're across the Grassroots project, is that right?
Funny enough, I'm sort of hanging around here, and thanks Tom. Thanks, guys. So, yeah, I've got, with my Turner and George hat on, funny, because actually I do the Metopia hats, but I haven't got a Turner and George hat, so it reminds me I should make it'd be a good cap. So, yeah, so Grassroots Project is it's a number of farms under the same sort of umbrella. The original idea was sort of come up with, one of the guys who came up with was Tom Barton from, Honest Burgers.
Yeah.
So the principle of regenerative farming is basically sort of, if you've got a monoculture or one single thing growing in a field, and you're putting the same chemicals on, and you're growing the same the plant, and you're ploughing it, and it just you can take all the nutrients out of the soil. So part of regenerative farming is moving your crops around, rotating crops, rotating animals. The other thing is what you won't get from a crop. You won't get a good crop without some animals on there, basically crapping on it, walking over it, eating shit, So what they do is and disturbing the soil as little as possible. Every time you sort of plough a field, carbon comes out, so that's not good for the atmosphere. A pasture is the world's carbon sink, So a grass pasture will slowly take carbon and just turn it into chalk, into layers, over aeons and aeons and aeons. So what you can do, you can plant crops using a thing called a needlepoint planter,
Right.
And so you plant sort of, just drill them in, in rows.
Yeah.
And what they will do at a lot of grassroots farms is they'll grow it like a small thing, like a beet or something, and they'll grow it like 2 or 3 lines of beets. They'll put in a fence. The cows will walk up to the fence, eat the beets, so they get a great diet.
Yeah.
And they always the farm will always keep some land to go wild. They'll always keep some land for the bugs and the insects.
So it's good. It's good for the animal.
It's good for the
It's
animal.
good for the environment, and it's great beef.
And what Jacob says, they also do tend to use they'll use a dairy calf. You know, 'cause I don't do that job. That's the hard bit. That is.
Yeah. Oh, look at those guns. Can we get a little round of applause for that? That was
That'd be a
pretty,
good gun
pretty
work.
impressive there. There we go.
But yeah, so you know the cows they'll use a sire as a dairy calf, so
Yeah.
that, you know on an Angus or something. So you're kind of using obviously a dairy male cow has no other use, so they'll bring them along, and then you end up getting a cow that's basically eating a great diet. You've got a field that's been sort of moved around, so you grow different lengths of roots. You know, you make sure you're putting good nutrients in. You're not using chemicals. You're not disturbing it as much as possible, and you get an effing great bit of beef.
Yeah, look at this.
Yeah, and you get to feel good about it, and you get a lower carbon product, and it's just the whole thing's just better for all of us. So
A serious joint right there.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. So
Yeah,
anyway,
look at that.
I'm going to shut up because the way you're going to learn about how good this beef is by getting your teeth into it a bit later. So I'll leave the boys; these are the experts,
Yes.
and I'll go away again.
Yeah, perfect. So what have we been doing whilst we've been learning a little bit there? So you've broken this down. You've gone through the chine bone or the spine essentially of the cow, and now we have started to put it into sort of some big primal cuts. So
Yeah.
what have we taken off the roasting so far?
So it's always easier to work on a roasting in smaller pieces. So you do tend to break it down as you go along. So now you've got the rump with the Chateaubriand still attached. You've got a tri-tip as well. This would be the T-bone or the porterhouse. And then we have the sirloin that James is working on and the rib of beef that we'll be boning out and making ribeyes out of.
Amazing.
Or roasting joints.
And this is seam butchery, right? Other than the big cuts that you're making, you're basically following the lines that the animal naturally has to separate it into the kind of the cuts that you want.
There's definitely some natural lines that you do follow, lines of fat and sinew and stuff like that. At the moment, we're just taking it off the bone. By the time we're done, you can start breaking it down even more through sinews and stuff like that, and that's when it becomes the seam butchery. But at the moment, just taking it off the bone and getting it ready.
Amazing. Perfect. Yeah, it's a serious piece of beef that we've got going on here. So we're going to throw on the sirloins onto the barbecue, right?
Yes, sirloin's the one we're going to cook.
Nice.
Or strip loin for the people from overseas.
A strip loin, nice. And how are we doing that? Are we going low and slow, hot and fast?
We're going to cut them into steaks. You can do them real hot, real quick,
fast, and
because we're tight on time.
A little bit of salt and pepper up on there.
That's all we're doing. Yeah, that's all
very
you
nice.
need for the good beef is salt and pepper. There's no point spending money on decent quality beef and then smothering it in marinades or what else.
Don't tell the chefs out there that. There is definitely a point to it. It's very delicious and worth spending a meat buck on. But when you do have fantastic beef like this, like the flavour that you get from that aging, the flavour that you get from that diet is so wonderful that actually doesn't need that much doing to it, does it? Just cooking well. And,
so
and that's
we're putting the time in and the money in to make it the best it can be just on its own. But yeah, it just comes out a real nice product. Completely different to supermarket beef.
Yeah, of course. And you can kind of see that in like the density of the meat, right? Like I don't know everyone's guilty of buying a supermarket steak every now and again, and when you pick it up, sometimes it's quite flaccid and limp. And when you get a really great piece of beef from a fantastic butcher like Turner and George, you feel it. It's dense. The fibres have come together. The moisture's been driven out of it by that aging process, and that's all flavour, right?
Yeah.
And what happens? So you've got a little bit of trim here and stuff. What happens with that in the shop when you're not using it just for the steak?
So a lot of the fat a lot of the fat we take off and use it for the burgers and mince.
Okay.
In the winter months, we'd use that to roll like beef joints that are too lean.
So just like for it to render out.
Yeah, exactly. You add the fat to it. But yeah, this time of year, it's a lot of burgers.
Right.
Then all the trim, all the lean stuff that we can get out of it, that goes into the burgers and mince as well. So we do have different mixes or blends of meat that we use for the burgers.
Amazing.
Different fat contents, different coarseness.
And do you get some nice braising cuts out of like a roasting as well,
Not-
or
n-
is
don't
it
tend
more like
to-
a hot and
this-
fast situation?
Yeah, you can get roasting joints. You don't tend to get too like braising out of it because you expect this is the steak meat. This is the
Right.
You get it normally from the shoulder and the leg, the braising stuff, just because it's a bit of a tougher muscles.
And that's because it's doing a bit more work, right? It's
Yeah,
kind
more
of-
work. The tougher the muscle becomes. It's like the fillet steak is the softest because it doesn't get used. It's I don't know what that muscle actually does, but it does just sit there for most of the time.
It's the deliciousness muscle.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, perfect, amazing. So what are we doing here, James? What we got going on?
Let me find my
Oh,
microphone.
there we go. Yeah, the man with the knife hasn't got the contactless one. We get to look like Madonna. This guy with the knife and the greasy fingers has got the
I
handheld
get
mic.
manual equipment. So this here, we just boned out the sirloin just here, is a cracking piece of meat. You can see by that rich yellow fat. Really common in ex-dairy beef, which a lot of grassroots beef is. It's an older cow. The fat is a lot richer on that, but it almost comes out creamy in that flavour, which lots of people who are going to be trying to taste is going to find out soon. This is a lean muscle here as well, so it's perfect for barbecuing. You know, you just have to really, really cook off that fat there, and then you can have as much play with that muscle. So you can have it rare, medium rare, well done if you're a masochist, you know. Plenty of play there. I'm going to cut some steaks just now for us all to
My
try.
wife just did the saddest face because she's pregnant and can only have well done meat at the moment, and is at a barbecue festival.
Oh, poor her, mate.
Bro, so this is the sirloin. We're going to go through some nice thick steaks. So we've got what, about 30,
Yeah,
25, 30 minutes to cook this. So
It's slightly smaller.
we're going to go kind of nice and fat, so we can get like a decent sear on it without completely overcooking it. I guess.
It's a monstrous piece of beef. It's going to take some cooking with these. Try not to make it too
See
thick.
that? And we're trimming a little bit of the fat off here. There we go. Beautiful sirloin.
I
So we're
don't
going to
do
get a few
all
of these on, and then we're going to cut into and show you the other kind of
Yes,
cuts that you
yeah,
can get
gonna-
off
gonna bone out the
piece of
rest
meat
of
like
it.
this. So if I was coming to Turner and George and buying a roasting to fill my freezer up, what are we talking about price-wise or something like that?
It depends on the breed, the age,
Yeah.
all that sort of stuff. How much work we have to do to it, because obviously most people don't have a fridge big enough to hold
Yeah.
a roasting in. We'd have to break it down. Off the top of my head, I couldn't quite tell you. It's going to be a few £100. So
200 quid, but that's not. I mean, considering that sometimes you buy in a steak, you know,
you'll
a fat
get some
steak, you
dinners
get
out of
some
it.
serious yield from it, right?
Definitely.
I feel like I've just set these guys up for someone coming in and asking for a whole roasting
It
to be
wouldn't
broken
be the
down
first
for them.
time.
Really?
It wouldn't be the first time. There's been a few customers in the past that will buy a whole roasting. They like it at a particular age, so they'll leave it in our fridge for.
Wow.
So I think they've had as long as 200 days, and left it in the fridge, and then they'll come in and just take pieces off of it.
What,
as
a
they come.
200-day aged, dry aged, and that's
Yeah.
going to just taste like gorgonzola at that point.
It's going to be strong, yeah.
Yeah,
It's not my
serious.
cup of tea for sure, but people each to their own.
There's kind of a sweet spot. I feel like I definitely had some steaks that have been a
I-
little too cheesy for me.
Once it gets past 50 days, it's a bit too much for me. But
Fair.
people are different, so there is people that aim for more than that.
Yeah, serious.
Obviously, you get more waste, and it takes more time, more energy to keep the fridge running for that long.
course,
So
'cause
the
you're-
price goes up as that goes.
You're kind
gets
of
older.
losing like water weight, and therefore your per kilo price kind of has to increase when
Yeah.
you're dry aging
Yeah.
something. Yeah, perfect, amazing. Brill. And so where are you go? You guys are based over in Angel. That's your first shop,
Angel's
right?
the first one, the original one. We opened one about 2 years ago in Waterloo. It's a little concession in a coffee shop.
in a
Green
there you go.
Smiths.
Flat white and a sirloin.
Flat
Love
white
it.
whilst you wait. And then we've opened a new one in the last few months in Camberwell in the same situation where it's a concession in a deli coffee shop.
Oh, nice. So
but yeah,
kind
both
of being
sides of the river now.
serviced by your store up in Angel.
Yeah, it's, so we have all the same suppliers. The Angel shop are busier, so they tend to keep a bit more stock.
Yeah.
But all the shops can get the same items.
And you guys, I'm led to believe, also offer a sort of butchery training / butchering course.
Yeah, we do a
out
butchery
there.
course. It tends to be a good present for people. We're actually reworking them at the moment to make it a bit more of an event, rather than because it's one-on-one at the moment. But
Okay.
we're trying to make it a bit more social. Have a few more people round, a few drinks, something to eat, that sort of thing.
Beautiful.
Make it more of an exciting
So,
event.
so it's not just you, James, a big knife and a big piece of meat in a room together.
Yeah, a
sounds-
bottle of wine.
sounds
It's
pretty-
quite romantic.
Oh yeah, well, that sounds amazing. Excellent. So what are we doing now, James? We're getting those up on the grill.
Yes.
Lovely.
Yeah, those steaks are all cut up and they're going to be going on the grill now. Yeah, just salt. The beef here is so good. If you did too much of that, I mean, contrary to what many chefs would believe, it is just going to taste lovely. It does not need a lot. The meat is so good. And the more you do to it, the less you're going to taste the quality of that meat. It is lovely, especially the grassroots stuff.
I think the fat is really like, as well, with something like this, like the benefit of taking that fat off, because if you render it down, you can use that in so many different things as well. Whether you want to put it in a salad dressing, you want to put it, I don't know, you want to baste another piece of meat with it, it's gonna taste like that aged fat, and then you get the benefit of having little crispy beef cracklings at the same time, which is always very delicious. Bro, so Robbie's just doing that. We're getting them on here. So we've got them. How hot's this grill, Robbie? Is it pretty? Pretty hot. And we've got some amazing charcoal, British charcoal, which has been supplied to us from House of Charcoal. I mean, it's one of the things that I would say take away from this weekend is that we're cooking amazing British produce, and the fuel that you cook it on is as important as the meat and the cut as well. So the charcoal that we've got, it's all sort of single species, British grown, local charcoal. You're supporting that kind of regenerative agriculture by supporting this kind of stuff. And you can see we've got Whitland Flame and the Yorkshire Charcoal Company, fantastic charcoal up on there. And you could put a little bit of smoke on there as well if you wanted to, right? If you're cooking it maybe a little bit less hot, you could throw a log on there, get some of that oak smoke and some of that character on there too.
Well, you made the charcoal sound good. You may want to eat it, mate. It sounds lovely.
Well, it's a lip burner, I reckon, if you go for that. Cool. So what piece have we got here now?
So this is the rump. The actual rump is this piece here, down at the bottom. That's your picanha. That's popular on the barbecues. That's your tri-tip, quite popular in America, not so much here. And then your Chateaubriand, which is like the butt end of the fillet.
Yeah.
It's the bit that goes into the rump. You see it on a lot of like sharing menus.
Yeah. It's a pretty premium cut, that, right?
Yeah, it's slightly cheaper than the fillet because it's not that perfect circle that you get, but you still get just a soft, same flavour.
Same tenderness. Yeah. Is it a bit fatter as well?
It tends to be wider.
Yeah.
There's a gristle that's round it that you have to take off to make it as soft as the fillet. But because it doesn't look as pretty, the price comes down on it because it's not, people aren't after it as much.
Fair enough.
If you're making like a beef Wellington or something like that, you tend to avoid that piece, go for the centre cut. But if you're just having a roast, you're better off going with that. As long as you don't care what it looks like. Because cheaper, same thing.
Perfect.
But yeah.
That always seems like a winning combo for me. Cheaper and delicious is always good.
Just as good.
And the tri-tip is that, I mean, they use that a lot in like Mexican cooking, right? For like braising down into the like a carne asada and things like that.
Yeah, really popular in that. Also really popular just as a smoked cut. Lots of very traditional American barbecues. The tri-tip is very popular.
Really?
Honestly, I would say in the Angel Shop, I've only ever sold a tri-tip to an American customer. It's very rare.
Really?
As far as I'm concerned, in British butcher shops I worked in, usually it gets chucked into trim to be in burgers, and they're all sleeping on it because it is such a good cut. It's definitely.
So can these guys come in and ask you for a tri-tip?
Yeah,
Take and try
anytime.
it
Please do. Please. I love selling meat to customers, so please do come and buy some.
It's interesting. I have a mate that moved to New Orleans, and for the longest time, he was going to like local butcher shops and asking them to cut like a British pork loin chop so that he could make bacon. And he was like, no one wants to do it for me. It just the cuts are totally different. It's so funny how when you cross an Atlantic Ocean, even though the product is essentially the same, even though American cows tend to be absolutely enormous, right? But the way that we butcher here, it's thousands of years old, and sort of you guys at Turner and Georgia upholding that tradition in a way, butchering as we have in this country for a long time, with probably the best the beef has ever been here, right? The way that we're raising it.
British farming standards are some of the highest in the entire world. It's why it's the brand that it is, and it's why it's so heavily regulated, is because it is so good that, I mean, it does bring people to restaurants, it brings people to butcher shops. It is a brand known around the world, and it tastes bloody delicious, so that does help it as well.
Amazing.
But with America, it's so much more that it's more of a mess pot of a country, that there's so many cultures that have gone there, and there's so many different ways of butchering that have all sort of merged into one. You get so much influence from so many different cuisines. It's why it's so different to any other country's way of butchering.
And you said the picanha, that's like more like a Brazilian, is that originally?
Yeah, my girlfriend's actually Brazilian, and I went to Brazil with her last year. And I went to the butcher shop and I was shocked to see that picanha was actually the most expensive cut in the shop, more than fillet, more than sirloin, and more than ribeye, which in my mind was absolutely shocking. It's a lovely cut, but to me that's just rump steak. It's delicious, but to think it's more cost more than fillet there.
So what have we got? What have we cut off so far? Is
So
this
far,
trim,
that's
or
the
is it-
that's the Chateaubriand
That's
that's
the
just been cut off
Chateaubriand,
right there.
perfect.
As you can see, all the age on that needs to be trimmed off. That there will be a bit of the tri-tip there, and he's just taking the rest of the rump off.
Perfect.
Now, doing a very good job of it as well, by the looks of it.
Look at that. I mean, it's always amazing to see a master at work.
It's a much tougher cut. That's why I left it for him. I very quickly jumped on the
Yeah,
sirloin.
Get the steaks on. We're
Make
laughing.
him do the talking.
And how are these steaks looking over there, chef?
Yeah, they're looking good.
Oh my gosh. Can we? I think we need to. We're resting these up now, but take a look at that. You can see how juicy and delicious it is. Oh, I've got a good grip, don't worry. And that fat's rendering out beautifully as well. Getting a lovely cook there. Oh, I'll put those back. And I know you guys are all waiting. Don't worry, we will be slicing some up for a little taste. No meat bucks required. Excellent. So we're just turning this round.
Yeah, taking it off the spine
the thing
now.
that always amazes me about when you see a butcher work, I remember once at work, we had a butcher just coming in to cover a shift. And the amount she laughed at me, I was trying to trim down some bavette steak, and I was taking off every it took me maybe 5-6 minutes, and she was looking at me like, oh, this guy's an idiot. He has no idea what he's doing. These guys are so quick. They're removing all the silver skin, getting your little primals out of there. It looks amazing. You had a question. Go ahead.
That big joint, bone joint you just taken off, can you put it on yourself to show exactly where that is on the cow?
I would love to.
I know you're smaller than a cow, but...
So the back of the hip kind of area. And what was the weight of that piece that we brought out? Was it?
I would say it's about 40 kilos.
Okay.
Obviously
Massive.
got a lot of bone and
Massive,
fat
yeah,
and everything. It's quite a large run, that one for sure. It's probably one of the bigger side on the bigger side to what we usually deal with.
Wow.
Those ones tend to be like Wagyu cows and stuff that get that
I
big.
see.
But
And this is ex-dairy, right? This
yes,
one,
yeah, ex-dairy. So that's your rump. That's what we call a decut rump. So that's ready to slice. You can slice that all the way through, however you'd like.
And you run that for steaks?
Yeah. Steaks. Roasting joints in the winter, you'd cut that way rather than the other, and then you can roll it into a nice joint.
Beautiful.
Use some of that fat that we've trimmed off on the other side just to bulk it out a
Almost
bit.
like wrap it round.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah. And then that's your picanha on the top there, the South American fan favourite.
Uh-huh. So you could trim that off and still have that nice roasting joint as well on
Yeah,
there.
definitely. So yeah, the trouble is if you do trim the picanha off, it tends to take all the fat off, most of the fat off the rump. But during the winter, it doesn't really make much difference because we can then put fat on and roll it round.
And do you guys see much difference? You know, we're using ex-dairy. I mean, do you want to tell us a little bit about ex-dairy and why we should be using it? And is there much difference with the fat content on an animal like that?
There's definitely a bit more fat on there. It's but I mean that's nothing you can't trim away if people don't want it. But it's just a much more sustainable way of farming and a much more flavoursome meat. It's lovely stuff. I mean, you think if you
They
have a
tend
cow
to be
and
older, right?
Yeah. You're looking. I mean, the ex-dairies we get in tend to be around 7 years. About 4 years as a dairy cow, and then you get a nice 3-year retirement. I mean, some of those cows have a better life than me. It is just wonderful meat, and you get so much flavour from that quality of life that it's had.
Yeah.
And it's also just two-purpose cattle, you know,
Yeah.
rather than waste. I mean, what happened before is once dairy cows were done with their purpose, they would just be slaughtered, and that would be it. But now
And we
there's
wouldn't
purpose
eat
for
it at all?
Yeah, dog food, mate. It's,
Really?
Yeah.
That seems like
or Greg's.
a Greg's. No, I won't have any aspersions on Greg's on this stage, young man.
You
Okay.
had a question, mate?
So the gentleman, just so if you couldn't hear that, whereabouts is the top rump roasting joint on the animal here?
It's
that we
actually
just-
on the leg. So it would come off this end. And then there's another muscle. It would probably connect somewhere around here. But yeah, it's just a name. I think that's a more an American term, the top rump.
What would you recommend for, I love my Sunday roast, but I often avoid beef because unless you go for a rib of beef or fillet, it's really expensive unless you get really cheap cut like Silverside or something like that. So I find unless you spend the serious cash, a roasting joint in beef often is a bit...
So the question again, if you couldn't hear that, just been asked a recommendation on a good Sunday roasting joint, Sunday roasting joint that isn't insanely expensive. You guys got a a cut you'd go to in that situation?
It's not wildly expensive. I mean, with beef, there is a smaller selection of not wildly expensive. The rump, in terms of cuts off the roasting, will be the cheapest cut, and probably be my preference of going for a roast. People do go for topside a lot of the time. That is a very favoured cut for a Sunday roast. Very easy to overcook, as my mum will tell you, but it is it is wonderful when done right. If I'm going for just a standard rolled joint, I'm going for either a rolled rump or a rolled topside.
I think what I'd say in that, though, is, a topside or a silverside or whatever doesn't have to taste bad. But if you're going to the right place to get a cow that's eating well and has some nice,
It's a French trimmed rib beef and it's gorgeous, but it's mega money. But on a normal Sunday, silverside I often find them quite tough.
Well, I think it's about finding the right place to buy it from.
Silverside tends to be more of a pot roast because it is a bit tougher. Topside's probably your next step, but that can still be on the tougher side. I'd always go for the rump. I think that's like your good mid-range. Tends to be softer, not as expensive as the rest of it, but you're still getting a decent feed out of it.
Fantastic. So we've got the rump there. We've got our little bit of try, our Chateaubriand. Beautiful. Are we going to do a little bit more? Or is it time for us to slice some steaks up?
I could do a rib.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Do we have a board? And this is the rib that we're bringing over, is it?
Yeah.
So this is the home of the ribeye. Well, so breaking it down, what have we got in here? We've got obviously got the kind of the round in the middle. Then do you have the decal in there as well? Is that right?
Yeah, that tends to be that muscle there. I'd call it like the ribeye, or the cap of the ribeye.
Yeah.
There is a more scientific name of it, but I can't quite remember what it
Fair.
is. But yeah, you've got the cap there that you take off, and you take all the lean out of it, and you can do like braising steak out of that.
Perfect.
If it's a real special Wagyu sort of cow, you can get people do steaks out of it. I've never had it myself, but it's because it's so fatty and rich, it can be quite soft.
It's that top bit of the ribeye when you cook it that's like just marbled and
yeah, well, you get
sort of soft and delicious, right?
Yeah, you get the cap that's on the fat, and that tends to be what they use for the Wagyu cows. They take that off and slice it. But then there's the decal bit round the actual eye of it, and that tends to be the softest part of the ribeye, most marbled. But
can we just admire this technique again? I feel like the hand is inside the saw right now. I'm worried for fingers here. They're just over there. Anyway, has anybody got any questions for the guys whilst we're breaking down this rib? No questions. Good. One right here for this young man. Tell us. How long does it last in the fridge?
It depends how it's packed, how good your fridge is at home, but we say 3 days is a guarantee. But it does depend. You can pack it differently. You can pack it in vacuum pack bags. It will last a bit longer. But if you've got a fridge that someone's always in and out of, like in the summer where people are getting drinks out or whatever else, it can affect it. So if you can get to a butcher's or a shop quite often, then I'd always recommend go more often. But if not, we can vacuum pack stuff, and it can freeze. You can freeze meat. People try not to, but it doesn't affect it too much in a decent freezer and packaged well. You can still enjoy it. It's not going to tarnish it.
If people can't get to you in Angel or in Camberwell or in Waterloo, how else can they get a steak like this or a
we
piece
do
of
online
beef like
deliveries, so next day delivery across the country or across the UK. Yeah, very, very busy on the website. There's a good selection. There's a lot of butchers that have the online but don't have everything on there. We've probably got more on the website than we do in the shop.
Wow. Okay.
There's a real big selection on
there.
there.
So if I'm trying to order this for Christmas, when am I getting my order in?
Online, I think they sell out by mid-November, late November.
Wow. Okay.
So you do need to be pretty quick. But we take orders in the shop up until the 19th, 20th of December. Until we can't fit any more meat in the fridge, basically.
Fair enough. And James, what we got? Oh, Jacob, maybe you can talk us through it, so James doesn't have to get his mic out. yeah. So what are we doing here with this rib?
So he's just taken the cap off of it. So first of all, we took the spine off the bottom of it, chined it. He's taken the rib cap off now. So you get a few different cuts in there. You tend to use that for mince or braising. You don't really Like I
Wouldn't
said, if
grill
it's the Wagyu cow, you can then slice it and get steaks out of it that way. But the normal UK beef, you don't tend to do that
Fair.
because it can be a bit tough. He's taken the paddy whack off.
The what now?
The paddy whack.
Tell us about that.
So it's a protein that holds the head up.
Okay.
So lamb and beef both have it. Pigs don't because their heads are just straight on.
Is that what you're getting, a lamb neck that kind of...
That yellow bit in the top?
Okay,
So
interesting.
and the paddy whack give a dog a bone. That's that bit.
I had no idea.
So you can like air dry these, and they'll be like a dog chew.
Okay.
But yeah, so all the animals, beef and lamb have it because their heads move. Pigs
Right.
are just straight on their shoulders and don't move.
Really? Huh.
Yeah, so pigs don't have it. But you will not be able to eat this. You won't get ill or anything, but you'll be chewing on it for months.
Okay.
It won't be going. So you do have to make sure you take that out with that and the lamb.
Okay, interesting.
These are the ribs. So normally we would just trim these out and put that into mince and burgers and stuff like
Yeah.
that. I have seen places where they would sell beef baby back ribs like that.
Wow.
I'm not sure how much you'd really want them just because it is more bone than anything else.
But
I have
the
seen people
meat's
sell
good
them.
though, right?
Yeah,
It's
the
like
meat's
tender
fine. The
and-
meat's fine. You would have to stew it or slow cook.
Yeah.
So like with the ribs, go slow smoking. But yeah, it's we would tend to use it for more mince and burgers rather than selling it as diced pieces of rib.
Lovely. I will interject here and just say this is the best part of breaking down a roasting, is when you get to finally see what is behind the chuck end face of the ribeye. This is always the most marble point of the ribeye, and I've said this is probably going to be the least marble ribeye ever, but it usually looks phenomenal. So
If everybody wants to get some content, I feel like this is the time to come up with your phone for this big reveal. Here we go. So this is the face that we're taking off, is the kind of bit that's got most of the age, right? It's
Yeah.
dried out quite a lot.
It's had all the air on it.
Oh. Look at that.
Gambled well.
Would you use that trim in like a burger for like amping up the flavour, or is it a little bit too tough?
When
too
you-
tough. I'd take the meat off of it because that will taste lovely, but I wouldn't put the black stuff in the burger.
Fair enough.
Probably get
No,
shut down if we did.
No, you can eat it, but it is tough. When you're using so much quantity of aged beef, just the nice bit on the inside there will do. You don't have to add this on. Like some people at home would add that to their burgers.
Yeah.
Because we do it on such a bigger scale, you've got enough dry aged in there to get the flavour. You don't need to add this sort of stuff.
Beautiful.
That is the bit that has the bacteria on it at the end of the day. That's
Fair enough.
So I would avoid eating it,
So-
but you won't get it all.
So what we're going to do now, we're going to slice up some of these steaks, right, and get them out to you guys. I have one last very important question. What is happening with the rest of this beef?
It's getting sent back to the shop, I'm pretty sure. So,
Okay, fair enough.
I hope.
Damn, I thought we were going to do a meat raffle. This is like the moment of my life I've been looking forward
cash
to the
only
most,
and round
yeah.
the back.
Anyway, yes. Out the back, yeah. If you see these guys in the van out the back, then maybe you slip them a score and you might get something in return. So,
More
steaks are
expensive
cooked.
than that, mate.
Brilliant. Yeah, let's get this beef off the front. Oh,
We-
here we go.
Where we
And so now we're really testing Robbie's skills here on the cook. Hopefully they're absolutely perfect, right? And can we get a few little trays up as well?
we've got a cloth or anything.
Excellent. So, 6 beautiful sirloins with a beautiful fat cap of fat on there. We're going to slice up. Can we try one first? Is that allowed? Is that,
Yeah, crack
is that a
on.
stage benefit that we have? Does anybody have any questions before we get into eating some? What goes into is it a Turner and Joy, the Turner and George cow pie?
I think it's just like an older cow and older animal braising cuts. I don't know if we still short rib. Do we that? Are they still being made? The cow pies?
Me and Jacob don't work in the kitchen, so we're double checking quickly.
It's in the recipe. It's short rib and ox cheek predominantly.
Short rib and ox cheek in there.
Sounds
I want
lovely.
to tell you guys also, this beef fat is an amazing hand moisturiser. They never felt so supple. I shucked a load of oysters over there yesterday, and these are like, oh, all the calluses are going. Young man, whereabouts is the hanger steak?
Hanger steak's the onglet. So it's the muscle that helps the animal breathe. It's the diaphragm. So quite strong tasting. It's a bit gamey, bit offally. It's not everyone's cup of tea. It is strong though. It's tasty, but not for everyone.
And sir? Any lessons to take back to the home kitchen from professional butchery?
Buy some, it doesn't even, buy sharp knives. It's a game changer, genuinely. Some good kitchen knives, and you'll feel just like a butcher, mate. That's half the job, is having a sharp knife.
And buy a chainmail glove. I think that's the one I would say.
Yeah, don't rush
Perfect. So,
anything.
we have here a beautiful, aged, grassroots, ex-dairy cow steak sirloin from these guys at Taylor and George. Can we get a huge round of applause for everyone? And if you want to come up in an orderly manner, there is some steak here for you guys to all try. Thank you so much, boys.
Sorry.
That was awesome. Thank you.
Bit meaty.
Oh, mate.